Good evening. Welcome to the an impromptu session of the NSA Ad Hoc, specifically for the purpose of soliciting some public feedback or presenting on the draft of our NSA memo, which has been developed over the course of the last 2 months. This was very, very short notice due to a canceled commission meeting. So much so that I neglected, unfortunately, in my busy schedule to notify the other members of the ad hoc. And so with many apologies, I will give many apologies to them and extend again those apologies tomorrow as we are discussing this particular document that we're going to talk about today. I know that we are a relatively small group. However, there is a recording, and hopefully that recording will capture and be posted before tomorrow so that people can see the current version of the NSA memorandum that has been developed by the ad hoc. And I guess I'm just going to get started. Thank you for those who are present, who are here, who are attending. I very much appreciate your participation. So for a little background, over the course of the last 3 months, an ad hoc committee comprising of myself, Chair Malele, as well as former Commissioner Brenda Hartman Forte, have been working with a group of community members, Pastor Jacqueline Thompson, Deacon Reginald Lyles, Mariana Contreras, Jose Dorado, Nikki Din, as well as members of OPD, so different set, Lieutenant Kalange, Lieutenant Hubbard, and Deputy Chief Wong in the development of a series of recommendations, community-driven recommendations to address an issue brought up by the judge, specifically around culture change. The ad hoc identified 3 areas of priorities to have discussions about, to develop ideas about, thoughts around, and recommendations for the department and for the commission, for some direction for the commission to continue working on these issues that we felt, best captured culture change, or best priorities to making culture change in response to the NSA court's question of, well, what can we do about the cultural problem that exists within OPD? Let's see. Over the course of these last 3 months, meetings, development, ideas brought to the table all culminate into a single document, which we are dubbing the NSA memorandum for September 14th, 2023, one that's specifically being presented to the Oakland Police Commission. There has been a draft that was circulated, posted as a supplemental on Monday. There is that draft is still a draft. All versions that you're going to see today are still drafts, but this the one that I'm going to present today does have significant edits and suggestions for changes that are convey the same ideas as the previous draft, but just in a different light and with additional context. I think both versions are going to be properly presented to the commission so that they have all the information possible as a means of making decisions about which one to vote on, to have edits for, to use as its submission to the court. And then with the eventual goal of submitting this as well as an addendum or statement by the police commission with all of the parties for the NSA to submit to the judge so that the court knows what it is that the commission has been up to and what our priorities might be for the future. Um, I think that is probably a good place to begin and to start and to discuss a little bit about what the memorandum is, what the ideas are, and it exactly is, um, what exactly these last 3 months have culminated in. The general idea for this memo is to give some framing, some background information, to provide an update as to what the police commission has done since the last memorandum dated March 30th, 2023 for an April case management conference. And also to describe the work of the ad hoc in addressing the court specific question, as well as delineates a roadmap for moving ahead, both for the commission as well as for the department. Um, so without further ado, I'm going to share my screen, I think. Okay. So again, with some apologies to the ad hoc, there have been significant framing and sort of drafting changes to this memorandum since they last saw it on Thursday when it was still a work in progress. And since it has been posted to the police commission's meeting for what was eventually a canceled meeting on Monday. It starts off with an introduction. What I'll do is I will probably give about 5 minutes of silence, since anybody who's watching this recording or currently viewing is probably reading right now. I'm gonna, for each page, give people an opportunity to read, to talk about it a little bit, and then to move on with the document. So 5 minutes starting now. that was just about 5 minutes. So this initial section again talks a little bit about what the point of this memorandum is, who the police commission is, in case someone just randomly comes by this particular document, a little bit of the history of why it is that we are here, and sort of what we have been doing, which is probably this next section. So I will again give people an opportunity to read and turn off my video for a little bit. This next portion of the document speaks a little bit to acknowledging and really, to me, makes a lot of sense. Um, kind of having the full context and being fair to the fact that while there is much more of a history and much more of work that has been done, both within and from outside of OPD, than, well, any of us have done in the and certainly any of us that have worked on, certainly more than I have, to try to make changes in policy that specifically address culture change. Specifically that they have gone through for 20 years. It did take some time, but 20 years of oversight, working on policy changes, making changes, disciplining officers, and essentially doing everything that they could or knew how to do to comply with those NSA tasks. It also reflects that we, as we reflect on what we can do to make culture change and to root out that rot that the court acknowledged existed within OPD. Root out, just making sure that that doesn't mean necessarily that the NSA is not in compliance, or sorry, the OPD is not in compliance with the NSA, but that there's still more work to do, and that frankly compliance with the NSA is a minimum standard at this point. especially for the community. This next portion, section 2, talks specifically about what the commission has done since the last memorandum, a March 30th, 2023 memorandum, one that was previously submitted to the court. I will take some time or give some time to go over the document. This section, as people must likely have read by now, recounts some of the things that the commission has done to work on reforming the internal affairs investigation process, as well as getting timely access to information about OPD, especially in cases involving command level staff investigations. It lists a number of things that the commission has taken action on to a vote, and describes them in detail. The third part is really, I think, the meat of this document, which begins to talk about what the recommendations from the ad hoc are. I think that although let me describe it this way. So I was the original drafter of the initial memo. I am a lawyer by trade. I am a very boring writer, not a very good writer. And so I generally just write for facts and try to be very, very clear, or as clear as I can be. But sometimes with that comes a little bit of, what's the word I'm looking for? Sterility? No, sort of something that really doesn't really let a reader know what it is that we're trying to do. I mean, it's just very flat facts that sort of convey what it is that we what the recommendations are. Now, I think this particular rewrite, which I've gotten some help with, a lot of help with, frankly, really charts a path forward as opposed to and sort of builds a stage for what it is that we hope and inspire and would encourage OPD to do, and to some extent mandate them to do, as a sort of path forward, as opposed to a document which merely recounts all of the bad things that is going on with OPD. Again, acknowledging that this is not just a document which recounts things that have happened, but also encourages, sort of provokes points and encourages a path forward. Hence the beginning of the beginning line or the header charting the path forward. So I'll shut up now so people can read. Um, okay, so this particular section, of course, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, is the beginning of the work that was being done in the last 3 months by the NSA Ad Hoc. Meetings, weekly meetings, talking and discussing, voting and deciding on priorities for the commission, really the department, and for the commission to develop in conjunction with the community about things that would provide actionable, sorry, priorities that hopefully will lead to actionable items that have the purpose of creating change, transformational change, and especially those around integrity and accountability, fairness, all the things that we want from our department and from our police officers. And so this initial section describes what it is that the ad hoc did, acknowledges that although these particular items don't really go to the specific IAD procedures that are outlined in Task 5 and Task 45, and is kind of the focus of the department, and the current and the upcoming meeting for the case management conference, there's still things that, well, really would go towards those, and specifically the cultural problems that were identified by the court, specifically that a lack of accountability, a lack of transparency, favoritism, things that were mentioned specifically by the court as the problems that created the sort of focus on Task 5 and 45 and the not in compliance mentions in these prior court appearances. And so this really just describes the process that we took and what to do, and really is a starting point for the commission to develop these priorities for eventually the department to implement. The first section talks a little bit about culture, which is the beginning portion of the focus of this ad hoc. And so give an opportunity for people to read. Sorry, that time was a little bit longer so that I could feed my dog some medicine. This first section, the department sought to, the ad hoc recognized that as we were working through some of these priorities, that they seemed a little vague, and they seemed a little vague because we didn't have a clear statement of what exactly the current culture of OPD was, what the problems might have been, and where it is that we wanted to go. I thought that was, and I remember thinking about it, not quite recognizing what we had accomplished in that moment, but but afterwards reflected, that is so important, right? To acknowledge where the department is now, especially not just within the department, but also what people are saying about specifically a court that is there to monitor their compliance with specific tasks and to monitor their compliance and really monitor their behavior coming from the writer's misconduct scandal, and to really acknowledge where they are and where they want to be, right? And so this was an effort by the ad hoc to do so, drawing in, of course, many different things: the court statement, the sort of some community sentiment, as well as specific things that maybe are not discussed as often as they should be. And I like the four things that were highlighted here: addressing historical challenges, fostering empathy, upholding professionalism, and rebuilding trust. These are very positive ways of describing that there is still a historical backdrop of racial profiling and racial disparities, which still exist today and persist today. That there is sometimes a lack of empathy towards the community that OPD serves, and that true understanding and compassion are very essential, and that really the department needs to work on fostering that empathy. Upholding professionalism and elevating professionalism within the ranks to ensure that the officers represent the highest standards of law enforcement. That's what we do hope for. And rebuilding trust, taking deliberate actions to rebuild trust within the community, as past actions have at times contributed to a sense of mistrust. Of course, identifying sort of the deficits of OPD's culture at the moment, we then turn to sort of where we hope it goes. Especially, we haven't outlined exactly the things that are here, but its own mission statement, value, vision, and core values talk about transparency, accountability, integrity, holding themselves to the highest standard, and serving the public, as well as addressing public safety. And of course, we bring in not just us, but also the city and Mayor Tao and her vision for OPD, where she emphasized the cultivation of values within the department, such as compassion, service, and accountability. And finally, the ad hoc also mentioned some additional things, and I like to acknowledge that some of these are not just about vis-a-vis what officers interfacing with the community, but also their wellness as a priority, so that they can be their best selves when interacting with communities, which in turn hopefully makes it so that those interactions are of the highest caliber and the highest nature, and they're present and able to do so. I'm going to read this last paragraph since it wasn't on the screen. The road ahead is one filled with promise and opportunity. It's a journey towards a transformed culture that not only aligns with the values of Oakland, but also sets an inspiring example for law enforcement agencies everywhere. In pursuit of this goal, sorry, that doesn't make any sense there, so I'm going to delete that on the spot. Sorry about that. I'm going to turn to what is essentially recommendation number one from the ad hoc, and give people an opportunity to read. I don't want to make the text any smaller than it already is. I apologize. So just work with what we got. So, embracing the lessons of a dark past for a brighter future. And let me scroll down a little bit so that it's all on one page and give everyone an opportunity to read. So the first recommendation generally revolves around getting officers, department members, sworn and non-sworn staff, although this memo specifically mentions officers, to acknowledge the past, the bad past of OPD, the dark past of OPD, and doing what they can to integrate that bad past and the lessons learned, not just the policy changes that have been made, but why those policy changes exist, as well as what the purpose of those things are, and the accountability measures that are set up so that department members, frankly, really get at and understand where the department has been and where not to go and what to explicitly avoid. Now, telling officers is obviously not enough. And so really integrating and getting them to internalize it, can train and train and train, but also tying those lessons to career progression, lateral movements to preferred assignments, whatever it might be, and testing on those subjects, hopefully will get officers to both internalize the past of OPD, even if they haven't been a part of that past, so that they can understand what historical trauma has been inflicted upon the community, empathize with that community, and in turn, leading to positive shifts in their attitudes and behaviors in such a way that, frankly, makes them understand in their daily practice what the community has gone through and to avoid re-traumatizing them or, frankly, avoiding the same mistakes. I'm going to go to number 2. So the way that each one of these recommendations works is that first we're going to describe what it is and how it might create culture change. The second one is sort of what concrete steps, general or sort of high level steps the department can take in order to get to that point or to implement these strategies. And then the third one is going to be what resources or experts can they draw upon in order to make sure that whatever it is that they do, the implementations, strategies that they take, that it is best practices, both in the thoughts, the ideas, the materials, the practices, as well as the implementation. So take a pause for people to read. As you can see from the writings that are here, there are some ideas which come to mind, that were developed as part of the ad hoc comprehensive department-wide training, leveraging existing training modules, embedding lessons into career advancement, and regular debriefing sessions. Um, this has a this has the effect of both making sure that everyone who is part of the department has the same base of knowledge about the history of OPD, um, and then to take what the department already has and sort of integrate it or create it into the most effective training possible, as well as one that specifically sparks conversations leading towards culture change to and then to embed those lessons in ways into career advancement, and then to regularly debrief in the best manner possible, and to not let fester just these ideas or rumors about what happened in sort of large-scale misconduct or even smaller-scale misconduct that occurs within OPD and local agencies and on the national scale. For instance, especially for that last one, the one of the things that OPD might want to do is debrief about the Antioch Police Department racist text scandal and misconduct, and about why that is so problematic in so many ways. But just a suggestion. I'm going to read this last paragraph just so that we're all on the same page. Incorporating these recommendations into OPD's practices and training initiatives represents a significant stride towards fostering a culture defined by integrity, ethical conduct, and a relentless commitment to serving the community. By proactively embracing these transformative measures, OPD can pave the way for a brighter and more promising future, strengthening its bond with the community it serves. And this portion, again, is the third part of each recommendation, harnessing expertise for positive change. A little long, so I will just give an opportunity to read. We're going to go a little bit faster as we go through this, just so that we wrap up by our allotted 7:30 time. I think I want to highlight one specific point about this section and this recommendation, is that the last one talks about having community members as presenters. Involving community members offers a grassroots perspective that is vital for fostering trust and understanding between OPD and the community. Also, their lived experience and insights can guide the department in building meaningful connections. And frankly, it's probably better that they just hear it straight from the community, because that's the people they're going to serve. Recommendation number 2, strengthening discipline for a culture of accountability. In pursuit of fostering a culture of accountability within the Oakland Police Department, NSA Ad Hoc Committee advocates for a positive shift in discipline policy and discipline matrix. This one specifically goes towards perceived accountability gaps and potential for officers to evade consequences through policy loopholes. Consistent discipline, transparent discipline, and consistent accountability, and making sure that accountability goes across the board and is equitably applied, is very key to ensuring that there is a culture of accountability. And that's what this particular recommendation gets at. Stop for a moment for people to read. think this particular recommendation kind of in this section kind of speaks for itself. Give a little opportunity for people to read about how that implementation may happen. This is going to take a lot of work. I'm not exactly sure how it's going to look. I probably think that it probably deserves its own ad hoc, perhaps, or perhaps a study. But essentially, taking a look at that discipline policy, the discipline matrix, finding the accountability gaps, discovering whether or not they exist or not, what can be done, what should be revised, and whether or not the discipline, whether it's progressive or not, um, is appropriate for the transgression that has occurred. I do think that it is something that would allow the sort of if the department were to open up and sort of describe and how it works, but also go towards building transparency into the process so that the community can be more involved in learning and knowing what that discipline process is and examining it to see where it doesn't work. And of course, the expertise section, bringing expertise to drive change and some of the things to mentioned as part of this ad hoc. We'll stop for a sec, myself, for people to read. Some of the more interesting portions about talking about this discipline study is that there is this weird, it's not weird, there is this interaction and possibility of racial disparities, not just vis-a-vis racial disparities within the department and um, how discipline can be disparately found and imposed. And the ad hoc was very cognizant about that and very concerned about that, and something that sort of keep an eye on and watch and moving forward. And of course, I want to acknowledge the work that is done, and the ad hoc wants to acknowledge the work that was done before us with the Reimagining Public Safety Task Force, which did very much take a look at the discipline matrix, did very much take a look at the manual of rules, did very much take a look at the discipline policy, and made recommendations as to what to change. We're hoping for a more comprehensive look when that does occur, but very much thank the work that they did, because it was a lot of work and a lot of thought that went into it that sort of let us know that we were on the right track. Okay, finally getting to the last recommendation. This was one that I think was always a discussion point, was always in the background, or people always had in mind about it, on it. It was discussed multiple times on multiple days, even though I very much tried to delineate what the topic would be, which is specifically fostering ethical leadership, and not just of its executive staff, not just at the highest levels, but all the way down to the people who are the first leaders, the field training officers, the sergeants, the leaders and the managers, and making sure that they are of the highest ethical caliber, because they're the ones that are imposing the culture on the newest people in the department. So I'll stop for a little bit to discuss, or for people to read. We of course want to acknowledge the fact that looking at management, as well as looking at the field training officer program, was a very large part of the NSA, and there were specific tasks 42 and 43. But the ad hoc committee, despite knowing about those, recognized the need to amplify its efforts in promoting ethical leadership and management, because that impact on culture was so important. So this is a focus, was a focus for the, is a focus, will be a focus moving forward. Well, to section 2 of this recommendation, which talks about strategies for cultivating ethical leadership. I will just take a moment so that people can read before I start talking, but it won't be very much talking. Now, when I look at when we were discussing some of these recommendations, it did really seem like OPD, and Lieutenant Hubbard was very helpful on this front, uh, was looking at some of these and were very receptive to some of the input here. There already is, there are ethical questions in screening. We were shown some of the job announcements for sergeants and captains, and they very much included both an ethical component, sort of a hypothetical, or a what do you do in this type of situation, a real scenario-based examination, as well as requirements for certain reading, those that involved ethical, basically discussions about bad past, bad practices, the ethical implications, and the ethical quandaries that are often brought up in policing. It was very interesting, but more could be done. The commission, I think, will be examining that existing practices as well as developing some of these recommendations in ways that we can ensure that we really instill that very strong value of ethical leadership, whether it's through integrity, whether it's through accountability, whether it's through building trust with community, whatever facet of that ethical leadership, it should be developed, promoted, and implemented. Of course, finally, those expert resources for ethical leadership development, people who we may be calling upon to help us develop this priority. And let's have some consistency in formatting too. I know that I took not as much time, but it's for those of us who are watching via recording, I realize people can just pause. So why don't we get to the bottom of this document? Here's a conclusion, and I will give everyone an opportunity to read this. It does very much identify that in the coming months, the Commission will continue to develop these priorities, the priorities laid out in this memorandum. Of course, recognizing that there's about to be a shift in the personnel in the Commission. I imagine that these are community priorities. These are community-driven priorities. These are community-selected priorities. And I think it's the Ad Hoc's hope that the Commission, whatever composition that it is going forward, will take these, develop them, and implement them in such a way to really bring about that transformational culture change that people are seeking for. So I'll give a moment for people to read. The astute followers may notice that there's 2 more pages. Those are notes or footnotes. I will need to correct them and fix them in a way that would allow for someone to read them very carefully. But that is the NSA memo for this particular round. Again, with apologies to the members of the NSA Ad Hoc for not sort of not notifying them about this particular meeting. It's my fault. Been very busy the last 2 days and wasn't able to, and had to reorient with the cancellation of the Monday meeting. I will be following up with them after today, emailing them this draft, and letting them know that both versions will be available as part of the agenda packet for tomorrow's meeting. There are still 20 minutes left in the hope that people maybe got sick of me talking and were waiting for the opportunity to speak. What I'm going to do is leave a little note on the screen for people to raise their hand or notify in some way or write their comments, if any, or feedback in the chat, and leave this webinar going for the next 19 minutes so that they have the opportunity for that feedback. or also direct them as an alternative to do so in the police commission's regular meeting tomorrow, Thursday, September 14th at starts at 5:30, but I would recommend coming in about 7 because of our closed session. Commission counsel, anything to add before I write this message? All right, then I'm going to write this message and let the meeting run through. Let's see. To Okay, to those of you watching via the recording, apologize for the last 20 minutes of just absolute silence and darkness. Um, but kudos to you for commitment, for watching all the way to the end. Thank you all. Have a good night, and we'll see you tomorrow at the police commission meeting. Good night.